Hi and welcome back. As we all know, there is a tight association between physical activity and our health. In fact, staying fit might be the best anti-aging intervention currently available to us. However, just how much exercise is the optimal amount, and whether there can be too much exercise is a debate that is still ongoing. According to one meta-analysis, more daily steps are associated with reduced mortality, and they say that's up to 8,000 steps a day. But after this, the association then seems to plateau. For comparison, the average American only clocks around 4,800 steps per day. And there are links in the description below to the studies and the articles I used to put this presentation together. The authors of this new study investigated the relationship between the number of days of the week spent in that sweet spot and average mortality, which determines how critical it is to achieve this level of physical activity. These researchers came from the University of California in Los Angeles and the University of Kyoto in Japan, and they investigated a cohort of 3,101 adult participants who came from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey of 2005 and 2006, and they all wore an accelerometer for 1 week. In this demographically robust cohort, men and women were equally represented. The median age was 50, and about 50% of them were of European descent. The cohort was quite active, which probably indicates an initial selection bias. 632, that's 20.4% of the participants, did not take 8,000 steps or more during the week of the study. 532, that's 17.2%, did, but only for about 1 or 2 days. And 1,937, that's 62.5%, took the 8,000 steps, but only for between 3 and 7 days. Over the 10 years of follow-up, 439 deaths from all causes and 148 deaths from cardiovascular disease were recorded. The results were adjusted for several potential confounding variables, including age, sex, race, ethnicity, smoking, BMI, history of diabetes, cardiovascular health, and also cancer. The analysis showed a curved relationship between the number of 8,000 plus steps per day week and mortality. The risk of both all-cause and cardiovascular mortality dropped sharply between 0 and 2 days. It continued to decline between 2 and 4 days, and then it plateaued. Moreover, a slight upward trend was observed between 5 and 6 days for all-cause mortality and 4 and 7 days for cardiovascular mortality. When additionally adjusted for average daily step count, the model showed the same relationship, albeit slightly blunted. This suggested that the regularity of physical activity might also be important, and that additional step counts below 8,000 a day are still very beneficial. The researchers performed several additional sensitivity tests. This included different daily thresholds, so 6,000 steps a day and 10,000 steps a day, but none of these significantly changed the picture. Stratification by age showed that for people younger than 65, there was no significant difference in the all-cause mortality between the 1 to 2, 8,000 steps a day group and the 3 to 7 days group. In people older than 65, the gap between these two groups was far more pronounced, although it was still much smaller than the difference between the 0 days group and the 1 to 2 days group that managed to achieve 8,000 steps. The reduction in all-cause mortality in people younger than 65 was 7.4% in the 1 to 2 day group and 7.8% in the 3 to 7 day group. This was then compared to the 0 days group. For people older than 65 in this group, the reduction in all-cause mortality was 19.9% and 27.7% respectively. Women seemed to benefit from walking less than the men did. In this cohort study, using nationally representative data from US adults, it was estimated that a higher number of days taking 8,000 steps or more throughout the week is associated with a decreased risk of all-cause mortality and cardiovascular mortality at the 10-year point. Even participants who only took 8,000 steps or more 1 or 2 days during the week showed a substantial reduction in all-cause and cardiovascular mortality when compared to those who were active more regularly, i.e. took more than 8,000 steps for 3 to 7 days per week. The estimated association was also robust enough to use different thresholds between 6,000 and 10,000 steps a day for the daily step count. The study findings propose that for those individuals who face difficulties in exercising regularly, for example, work or family obligations, achieving a recommended daily steps, if only for a few days per week, can have meaningful health benefits. The study did have several strengths and also some limitations. On the one hand, it did use accelerometers rather than just questionnaires, which allowed the researchers to get a more reliable picture of the participants' exercise patterns. On the other hand, the cohort was relatively small and the participants only had the accelerometers for just 7 days. As wearable devices become more and more commonplace, scientists should soon be able to gather far more data on everyday physical activity. Until then, the initial evidence indicates that hitting your step count target on just 3 or 4 days of the week is almost as beneficial as doing it every single day. Now, I reviewed quite a few of these studies, and the daily step count studies that I've looked at says the sweet spot seems to be somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 steps per day. This study seems to advocate for 8,000 steps per day for at least 3 or 4 days of the week. My step count target is 5,000 steps per day. My monthly average at the moment is somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 steps per day. That said, I do hit my target of 5,000 steps a day pretty much every day. Daily step counts are very much like sleep, in that guessing how many steps you take per day is very much like guessing how much REM sleep you got last night. The only way to know for sure is to use a fitness tracker, a smartwatch, or even a smart ring. If you do have a device, please let me know in the comments below what was your daily step count average for last month. You see here mine was 8,775.